Welcome to Falmouth Community Television and to a live celebration of Community Media Day. The staff have provided me with these balloons to put us in a party mood. Thank you, guys. Tonight, we're going to hear from many people about the impact that FCTV has had on their lives, but I would like to start briefly just to say something about my own involvement. That began some 20 years ago. Kevin Lynch and Bob Hendricks were my mentors. They began putting out programs that centered on local interest, and they also put out programs that showed the transparency of the workings of Falmouth government as transparent to all of us for the very first time. They and so many volunteers saw early on the need for an alternative to commercial television. Since then, talented volunteers and staff have followed along to make FCTV a vital part of Falmouth life. We will hear from many people tonight about their own stories, and we can start with on my left with Penny, with Jay and Susan Zavala. Jay and Susan, are you muted?
Not any longer.
No, you can't keep us quiet now.
Oh, great, great. Tell us about your involvement with FCTV.
Well, you want to start?
Well, it started with a boredom on a Sunday with football, and let's go learn to do some TV making and find out what this is all about. And that was 17 years ago?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
17 years ago, yeah.
She actually called it going on the date.
I see. So we were both early beginners with FCTV.
Bob Hendricks was also our mentor. Shows that we got our start learning how to use all of the equipment, and we worked on his TV shows.
Yes. And in those days, the technology was labor intensive. Remember having to work those heavy cameras.
Yeah.
It has got a lot easier. And Jay, do you have something to add to that?
Well, yeah. So the fun part was that Susan is the techie in the family, and so she gravitated to the backside of the camera, and somebody made the mistake of putting a microphone or a handheld mic in my hand, and I gravitated to the other side, right? So Susan has produced a number of shows, and I've had the privilege of sitting behind them in front of the camera and enjoying that aspect of it. So we both have gotten a lot out of being members of FCTV.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I will turn then to Karen Delaney to hear what she has to say. Karen of Falmouth Service Center. Are you muted? Yes, I believe you're muted. We can't hear you.
Can you hear that?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And
yes.
Tell us about the connection that FCTV has with the Falmouth Service Center.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me. I don't know what happened, but it's Zoom, of course. Something has to go wrong with every Zoom call.
Right.
The Service Center, it's been wonderful to have the connection to FCTV. They recently came out like a year ago pre-COVID and filmed our Thanksgiving. It's a wonderful way to get out to the community, our services. They filmed part of our Thanksgiving famous turkey drop-off day and interviewed some staff and volunteers, and just helping to spread the word about the work of the service center. The food distribution, the Thanksgiving, are big efforts to support the community.
Yes, that's spreading the extraordinary work that's being done there. Thank you, thank you. And I'll turn to Nell now to hear your story.
Barbara, thank you for having me on here. And what a delight to see all these beautiful people. I came to Falmouth about 11 years ago, and I can't remember who introduced me to FCTV, but it's one of the best introductions I ever received, because it's one place I can get a lot of the local news. I've done a number of interviews with you and some other folks on FCTV. It's a great place to get the happenings of our faith community, the Wacoit Church, out to people. And I'm also a very proud sponsor of the town meetings, because we know everybody watches town meeting. And at the very end, you can see all the sponsors, and it's my way of giving back to FCTV and also to the community. And then recently during COVID, I have become a big faith TV star, because our religious services, our worship services on Sunday are broadcast Wednesdays at 10 a.m. and then a couple of other times during the week. So it seems like every day or every week, every year, our connection to FCTV gets stronger and tighter. So we are so thrilled to be partners with you.
Thank you, Nell, so much. And Penny Doobie, I know that your connection has been quite strong with FCTV of late. Mute, we can't hear you.
Okay, is that
There we
better?
go. Yes, great.
I apologize. I think, like many others here, you were the link for our group and for me to FCTV because of your wonderful program Conversations with Barbara. And I know many people who have been interviewed by you and make a point of listening to that, because it's such a wonderful source of information. And also, we've been fortunate to discover that for our Upper Cape Women's Coalition, the FCTV is a really powerful tool to reach out to people in the community we might not be able to reach any other way, because not everybody has a subscription to the newspaper, and not everybody has the higher levels of cable channel that they have to pay for. But FCTV is accessible and available to everybody. And it's been a wonderful way for our group to reach out around women's issues that are of such deep concern, especially in these times. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity.
Yes, though you've made some very important points, and thank you very much for that. And is Lee, I don't see Lee Drescher, so I will turn to Olivia White for your story about your involvement with No Place for Hate and with FCTV.
Thank you so much, Barbara and FCTV, for inviting me with all these wonderful faces that I see. Some of you have already said what I was going to say, but my first experience have been like Nell. I came 10 years ago to Falmouth and got very involved with the Newcomers Club. And in 2014, I was the president of Newcomers Club, and we got a request from FCTV. They were making 3-minute public service announcement for all the religious organization as well as civil organization. And I had the pleasure of making the 3-minute PR, and we still have that on our website. So when newcomers come and look at it, they look at that interview that we did and told them as to what this Newcomers Club is all about. And I'm also very involved. I'm on the board of Falmouth Historical Society. And recently we just did a program which was to do the Heritage Award, and I see it on the screen. Both Penny Dewey and you, Barbara, were the honored guests that were really given the Heritage Award, and FCTV covered that because people, those who couldn't come, were able to see that. And one of the advantages that I think with FCTV is that not only you tape the program and you show it, but it's available so that anybody can go and take a look at it. Third organization I was going to mention is that Chamber of Commerce. I volunteered at Chamber of Commerce, and the day I was volunteering, that's the day they always tape the show that's going to be on FCTV, telling them what's coming up of the next week. And it was just wonderful to see Susan and Mike do the taping, and I have to move out so I can see it. And this way I didn't have to turn on the FCTV. I could actually see the tape when it was done. And more recently now, FCTV has been doing COVID updates. And that is amazing contribution to the public as to what's happening with COVID. And most of all, those people who don't take enterprise, that's the only way they can get the information is doing it through FCTV. And I think I'd be amiss if I did not say about No Place for Hate, because we are so grateful for what FCTV had done, raising our mission, which our mission is to bridge building and creating, they're taking the biases from people, and they've started this program of conversation. So I'm very grateful. And I have 2 or 3 other organizations I will mention, but I think I will stop at that now. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Olivia. That's wonderful, wonderful information about the breadth of FCTV. And let's hear from Gary to hear your story about your connection with the organization.
Well, thank you, Barbara, and many thanks to the community television station. You know, from my perspective, there's been 2 kinds of involvements. One has been more of a public service, and the other has been kind of the creative side through the theater company. And I want to say this, though, in general, in advance, that the only thing that everybody still trusts is local information provided by a local source like this. And Falmouth Community Television is essential to the fabric of this community, and I appreciate it so much. My first involvement here was with Troy Clarkson and the late Bill Zammer, my great friend, and Michael Kasparian, as part of the Falmouth Cares show that we had on. And I know Nell appeared as a guest there, and it was a wonderful experience. You know, my connection with the FCTV has really started with COVID. It's a way that we could continue to communicate through that storm, and it was a wonderful experience, and it was great. And I met so many wonderful people through that. On the creative side, the theater company, the Woods Hole Theater Company, has been partnered with Falmouth Community Television, a wonderful partnership for many, many years. And throughout COVID, we had to find a way to express ourselves. We put on a couple of shows. Andrew Richards helped us out wonderfully with a show. We did a virtual Tales and Anecdotes, which is our version of The Moth, where we have storytellers get up and tell stories. And we did that with you folks, and it was just wonderful. And we put on some locally written short plays called The Perils of Zoom Operations, which we called Zoom Bombers, for also in the last year. And, you know, again, Falmouth Community Television provided us with a creative outlet that was just, there was no way to do live, and was just wonderful. So we love it. We appreciate so much what you do, and thank you.
Thank you very much. And speaking of the creative aspects of involvement with Falmouth Community Television. We have with us Marie Blackburn. Hello there, a colleague and a person who has her own show on FCTV. Tell us something about your experience, Marie.
Hi, Barbara. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Yes, so my involvement, I've been on in Falmouth for over 30 years, wonderful community. And my involvement began in about 2015, 2016, when Debbie invited me to come and, do a show. I started a conference in town called Driven Cape Cod's Conference for Women, and we needed a way to get the word out about the conference. We were bringing women together all across Cape Cod and beyond to share useful and relevant information that would drive them to be the change in their own community. So it was pretty much an act of service. Business women, youth, the retiree women came from all over. So we used the FCTV platform to showcase the conference and to interview women and to lift them up. We started Driven Women TV. So we interviewed local women from Falmouth and around Cape Cod and showcased what they were doing out in the community. And we still continue to do some of that work. I now do a show called Conversations That Matter, and we talk about race, social justice, inclusion, and diversity. And that can be shared on the FCTV platform as well. One of the things that I like about FCTV is the opportunity to share my poetry. I'm a poet, and I've been able to do some of the open mic nights with FCTV. So there's so many opportunities to do so many things. My son directs my show, so we've been able to learn many aspects of the creative process, the producing aspect, learn how to use the boards, the cameras, the graphics. We learned, we had some training in podcasting. So there's so much for everyone, for all ages, for children, and adults to do at FCTV. So it's been really good for my family and my networks.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the opportunities that the FCTV has offered for all of us. I'm the least techie person I know, and to be able to get the training that FCT offers, both in, as you said, in using the equipment, in performing, in putting together programs. And I must say to anyone viewing that membership is easy to acquire. Go to our website, fctv.org, and become a member and check out all the interesting programs that are offered for training. Some of them are done by Zoom right now, but they're going to continue on. So thank you, Marie, very much. It seems to me that the richness of this community is reflected by everyone that is here. It seems to me that FCTV reflects what all of you are giving to the community, and it's something that we want to celebrate along with celebrating Community Media Day. We'll celebrate each other, a good celebration. And I want to thank you very much and turn to Kim DeWall for her story about the library and Falmouth Community Television.
Hi, Barbara. How are you?
Hi.
Did you want me to describe the grant or how?
Yes, tell us what's going on with the library and FCTV.
Yeah, so this year we had a great opportunity to collaborate with FCTV. The library 2 years ago was awarded a grant through the Library Services and Technology Act. And it was established to support libraries in building communities and collections, specifically by focusing on historical resources to surface any unknown stories, local stories through residents and local historians. And so because the library has an extensive collection of historical postcards of Falmouth, we thought that that would be a great resource to use as a discussion point or for inspiration to share knowledge of Falmouth's rich history. A large portion of this grant was, we were asked to collaborate with like-minded organizations. So we had the idea to use the postcards to create oral histories. And so we reached out to FCTV and to help us produce those. And that's what we've been doing for the past 2 years. And it's been very successful. Thanks to Bob and his crew and to Barbara and Troy Clarkson, who have been interviewers and interviewing local residents and local historians to tell us stories and the rich history of Falmouth.
Yes, and that postcard collection that is available on the library website is just extraordinary. It brings
Really
us
is.
back to an early Falmouth, which quite different from what things look like today. And now I see an old friend, Jerry, and please tell us something about your involvement. Again, I believe you're muted. Jerry, we can't hear you.
Unmuted now?
There we go.
I apologize. It's great to see you, Barbara. And as always, I really appreciate the time to interact with you. I was originally trained as a crew member. And so I had the opportunity to do some camera work. And I was able to do some camera work for your particular program. And I always enjoyed the opportunity to talk with you about things like Greek mythology and just wonderful experience. But the opportunity as a camera person allowed me to go out into the community and to record some interesting topics. For example, one of them, I got the opportunity to hear a speaker talk about the pandemic of 1918 and how it affected Falmouth in particular. So it was right at the beginning of the pandemic. So it was a great experience to hear, about that particular time and how they handled the pandemic back then. Being a camera person on your show allowed me to interact with the audience members before and after the show. And those led to connections that allowed me to be a part of some programming on FCTV, which was wonderful, including the conversation, the man on the street, the town meetings also. So those are some of my experiences.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Ryan Weber is our connection with the educational channel. And is Ryan with us? Yes. Do tell us about channel 14, which is our education channel.
Thank you for having me on to be able to talk, Barbara. Really appreciate giving the opportunity. I've had the distinct pleasure of being educational access coordinator for FCTV for about 10 years now. Coming from Maine, where really couldn't even conceive of educational access or public access in general, I was astounded when I first moved to the community that we had this local resource. It's just never something I grew up with. And I come from a TV background, but not anything with community access. So seeing how local programming can impact the community and even the wider region was really exciting, and I'm really been a glad part to be a part of all of this. I'm also very extremely proud to be able to share all the amazing things that go on in the Falmouth Public Schools every day. I know not everyone gets a chance to access it. I feel incredibly lucky to be able to see it and then to be able to share it out as well. So in non-pandemic times, educational access is a conduit for student work and successes. That's everything from performances, community meetings, science fairs, school committee meetings, and everything in between, just working with students, seeing all the amazing stuff that they do, sharing that out with community, also helping them, and for some students who have expressed interest in video, actually working with them on different projects, letting them be able to kind of learn and experience video in different ways. And we've had students who have gone on to careers in video production. I have a student who's a broadcast engineer, students who have worked in ESPN, some of the bigger markets as well. This was a passion of theirs, and I'm glad that I was able to play even a small part in it and getting to them to where they are now. In terms of our programming, we've got quite a few things going on. In addition to all the stuff that I talked about as well, we have some student-produced programming such as the Fhs Morning News, which is a daily live broadcast from Falmouth High School studio. Students report on announcements, sports, weather, a lot of stuff that's going on. It kind of replaces the traditional PA announcement, and instead we do our broadcasts that goes out in the classrooms on these smartboard TVs that we have in school, but also all on Channel 14 so that the community can see it as well. After the pandemic, we were lucky to return this year. Prior to that, with the pandemic going on, we had done some weekly virtual reporting. All of our anchors were at home. But this year, with the return to school, really excited that broadcasts have resumed starting at 7:20 on Channel 14. And that's all student produced. They are in front of the camera doing the reporting. They're behind the camera operating things. My director, Lee, who's now really taken big charge in teaching other students how to do stuff. It's really great to see students kind of helping each other and being successful that way, and just doing really cool stuff. It's great to be together as a group. During the pandemic, we've had quite a few things going on. Schools were not as available in terms of people being able to access schools. So especially for the last year and a half, it was an opportunity for us to be able to share out all the stuff that was going on in the schools, because it wasn't really, unfortunately, all that visible. So that meant things like virtual performances instead of being able to do in-person ones. We had a virtual science fair this year that we were able to broadcast out. We weren't able to do musical like we usually do in past years, but we got a chance to talk to the theater department, the director there. And instead of doing musical on the stage, we made a movie, a feature-length movie of high school musical, and that was able to get shared out with community. But it also gave students a great chance to have experience acting in a movie, being able to produce it, to film it, learning all those different positions for movie making and cinema. Now I have some students who are actually, I think, a little bit interested in doing that as well. In terms of other stuff that's going on, we have a lot of sporting events in the last 2 years because of access, as well as just ease of use. We've started with a new sports streaming service. So we have cameras that are on the Falmouth High School multipurpose field, as well as in the field house. So that is every single sport basically that gets played: basketball, volleyball, soccer, field hockey, football. I know I'm forgetting several, but basically every game that we have at home is available for watching on streaming using the streaming service. And then those recordings are available on the weekends on Channel 14 as well. Last year, we were lucky as well to be collaborating with the other Cape and Islands teams as well. So we had shared pooled footage. So we were able to share footage with them, especially for the away teams not being able to come to those games, so they could still see, everyone could see their kids playing if the families weren't able to be there. And then we were able to get that out as well. With pandemic as well, we helped do programming to help families transition back to school. There were a lot of new routines and just a lot of stuff in general that let us be able to kind of let families have access to the schools in kind of a different way. And it was kind of a unique opportunity that we could be able to share out all of the great stuff that we have here as well. And not to steal your thunder, but I also have Pat Murphy here from the school district who might be able to talk a little bit more of some of the other programs, including some of the school committee stuff that we were also able to do for the schools.
Thank you, Ryan. And I think with that segue, we will go to Pat Murphy. Tell us more.
Thank you for having me. So I'm Pat Murphy. I'm the Director of Finance and Operations for the Falmouth Public Schools. And the partnership with FCTV has been a long one. It's been a successful one. And we're, if you haven't noticed how good Ryan Weber is, he's truly exceptional. And has really helped move the district forward in both sort of from a technical perspective and then more importantly from the perspective of making sure that our students have access and learn how to use equipment in a productive, thoughtful manner that benefits their colleagues and the community. But I wanted to spend a couple of minutes just to sort of remind folks that this doesn't always happen, but the partnership with FCTV and just sort of the normal work that we do in recording the school committee meetings and making those public, and then in real time, and then cataloging them has, you don't realize how important something is until something like a pandemic shows up, and you understand that in order, when you have limited ability to communicate with the public, our stakeholders, right? Whether they're parents or taxpayers or everybody, and you need a resource like FCTV to help us get the word out and to get input back. It just drove home how important the FCTV partnership was. And there were, as some of you might have guessed, there were some important decisions that had to be made that required us to request input and perspectives and different opinions, so that the best decisions for the students and the entire community could be made. And one of the primary methods of doing that was through the school committee meetings. And we have a school committee that is very aware of their responsibility in terms of being transparent in trying to communicate effectively with the public. And they took advantage of using FCTV in terms of trying to find ways to make a really difficult thing in terms of holding public meetings and getting community input doable. And I think some of our response, some of the audience that we generated was due to the obviously unusual topics and times that we've been through, but some of it was due to people getting comfortable with the technology and understanding that, hey, this allows me to participate and be informed when I don't have to show up in public in person at a public meeting, but I can still participate and be informed. And I'm looking at folks who I noticed on this call, and I know some of you did participate in some of our meetings, whether from an informational perspective or giving opinions or giving perspectives and helping us come to some decisions last year. So the partnership with FCTV, if folks might have taken it for granted previously, I think the pandemic has shown people how invaluable this partnership is and will be in the future.
Thank you so much. That does point out some of the resilience of Falmouth community television and in responding to these needs through COVID. So let us now turn to Reverend Will Mebane and hear your stories.
Well, good evening, Barbara. It's good to be with you. Thank you for the opportunity. So I want to begin by sharing with you and your viewers that I'm actually skilled in radio, television, and motion picture production. That's my undergraduate degree from the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And so I had a almost 20-year-long career in the broadcast industry. And I was thinking about how, and this will tell you how old I am. I remember when cable was just coming into being. And I was an executive in the television industry at that time. And I remember writing letters to Congress and maybe even going to Washington to testify about this evil thing known as cable television that was going to come in and totally put all of the network affiliated TV stations out of business. And we worked really hard and we fought really hard to keep cable television at bay, only to realize, fast forward and say at roughly 40 years or more, to my arrival here in Falmouth and the realization that there is no local network affiliated television outlet here on Cape Cod. There's no ABC, CBS, NBC, all right? And I have learned how to appreciate cable television, and particularly community access channels, even more so than I had prior to arriving here in Falmouth. We have benefited from the services of FCTV. We here at St. Barnabas's in Falmouth have benefited, like others have said, as a result of the pandemic. When COVID hit, we had to, like many religious institutions, go strictly to live streaming, using whatever platforms were available to us. We started out doing Zoom, I guess, like lots of folks. And that was how our parishioners were able to attend the Sunday worship services. And we did not miss a beat. And part of that was because FCTV then broadcast those religious services, our Sunday morning worship services, on one of the access channels. And that has continued throughout the pandemic. And then some 6 months or so into the pandemic, I was approached by Deborah Rogers of FCTV about the possibility of serving as co-host and co-producer of a television show, specifically to look at issues addressing race and racism in our community. And this happened shortly after the George Floyd lynching that we all witnessed, thanks to television and phone cameras that let us see that horrific death, that horrific murder. And like lots of other communities, there was a desire in Falmouth for some action, something to happen. A reckoning has been called following the execution of George Floyd. And so Deborah approached me and asked if I would be willing to serve as a host and producer of it. And I said, well, I can't do it alone. I can't do it by myself, but so I need some help. And I was able to recruit Angela Scott Price to come and be a co-producer and a co-host with me on a show that's called The Conversation. And the show is all about, again, having some very difficult, challenging conversations, the types of conversations we need to have, but most of us don't have, because we don't know how to talk about race and racism in our society. We don't even know how to talk about it with family members and friends. And so I'm grateful to FCTV for that platform, for giving me the opportunity to use some of those skills that I learned a long time ago, and to engage in conversations with community members around those very serious and sensitive issues. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yes. Thank you very much. Some of the thoughts here that have been expressed may stimulate thinking on your part. So let us see what additional thoughts any one of you here with us may have about media, about community media, about FCTV, about your own concerns with providing the community with information. So let's just raise a hand if you'd like to say something else. Yes, Jerry. You're muted. Oh, you're muted. Can't hear you, Jerry.
Yes, there we go. I think
There
I'm
we go.
muted.
Yes,
Unmuted.
yes.
There we go.
Yes.
Well, I've been a bit frustrated by the delay that the pandemic has caused, but I'm really hopeful of putting together. We've had conversations with Ryan and the folks at FCTV to produce some Indigenous programming. And that's going to take a little bit of effort on the part of the Mashpee Wampanoag Education Department to access some grants and things like that. But we're really interested in see if we can have something on a regular basis so that the Mashpee Wampanoag can have a voice and be a resource to the community, telling their truth, telling their history, having students produce programming. And so we're still trying to put things together. Hopefully there's going to be some things coming soon. Really appreciate the opportunity to having been on the conversation with the Reverend, and a great experience, and the contact that comes afterward is truly special. People reach out to you and ask you questions about maybe topics that came up on the conversation, or they saw you on a particular program. And some of the connections we've made with many Falmouth community members has been very rewarding. And so we look forward to a continued collaboration with FCTV.
No, thank you. Nell, do you have some additional thoughts?
Yes, Barbara, it occurred to me after listening to everybody's story, and maybe people already looked at this up, but I wanted to say it again, how FCTV has really connected us all together. And not just, I think we really saw that in the pandemic. And as we're getting out of the pandemic, we're not losing that connection. And I think for any healthy community, you need that connection. And I think that connection is very, very deep. And I commend FCTV for keeping on, during these tough times. So that's a beautiful thing that has come out of this.
Yes, thank you. And Olivia, yes.
Thank you very much again, Barbara. I thought I had already taken enough time, but as I'm looking, and I was looking at Penny, and there was a sign behind her that says vote. And I said, I did not say anything about League of Women Voters that I am so involved with. And League of Women Voters all these years always uses FCTV to meet the candidate. They get a chance to see who is running for election, what they stand for. They can ask them questions. So I wanted to make sure that I lift that particular connection. And since I had spoken, then I see Reverend Will Meban there, and I want to thank you. I also had the privilege of appearing on your conversation. And I think that show has given visibility to me and members of minority community, that people don't know that minority actually exist in Falmouth. So I really want to thank you for that. And I would like to make another suggestion, and that is based on what Jerry was talking about Wapenam, that reminds me that I also serve on the Falmouth Arts Center Diversity Committee, and they've been talking about celebrating Festival of Light, Diwali, which is Diwali of Light is the India's Festival of Light. And they asked me if I will help them to do something in November, and which gives me an idea to ask FCTV that maybe it's a really good idea for you to think about highlighting some of the world's festivals from time to time and educating the community that there are people from other cultures and their festivals and what they do. So thank you again for the time.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much, Olivia. I might mention that FCTV is volunteer-based, so that all the programs must be produced by volunteers. And this is why as Jerry has pointed out, why there's such extensive training. So what needs to happen to have these wonderful ideas come to fruition is to have some volunteers come forward to become members and then to take the training, which is really not difficult. Remember how heavy cameras used to be in the old days, and all of that. Now cameras are robotic. So the training is not formidable, it's really easy. And to think that the kinds of ideas that Jerry spoke of and Olivia could become made possible with only if volunteers come forward to do that. And I think that can happen. Certainly Gary spoke to about the creative outlet that is available, that all these creative abilities can find a avenue to produce good programs. And I want to hear from others too. Jay, do you want to come back with any ideas that have been stimulated by this kind of conversation? Or Susan?
Thank you, Barbara. Just recently, I invited the American Parkinson's Disease Association, the Massachusetts chapter, to become a member of FCTV. I'm hoping to use FCTV as the springboard for sharing information about people with neurological diseases, not only Parkinson's, but others, by bringing in hosts or visitors and guests to share information about what the struggle is like. That's the latest initiative. But the takeaway that I want to share with everyone is, having not only worked with some of you, not only listened to all of you over the pandemic season, it's just a reminder of how vital FCTV really is. Because the day without FCTV is a day in darkness. And we've had an opportunity. Susan and I have used FCTV as our own personal hobby place. It's a fun place for us. It's where our friends meet us. It's great to see the smiles that I'm seeing tonight, and saying, oh yeah, I've got to talk to Olivia about women's voting. I got to talk to Gary, when you and our friend Bill Zammer and Michael Kasparian and Troy Clarkson were talking about the business community and the struggles that we're experiencing and what was ahead, that was all very enlightening. Will, when I listened to you speak about diversity in our community, it made me more aware of the things that, the areas that we need to pay attention to. Pat, it's great to hear your perspective on how great FCTV is with regard to the school system. I'm grateful to Andrew for inviting us to be a part of this, because it's a reminder that we have to keep rolling up our sleeves and working hard to protect this great asset that we have in our town. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jay. And your notion of having a program that will give people information about Parkinson's is a great idea. So
yeah, we've got, to my surprise, we seem to have over 1,000 people suffering from Parkinson's disease on Cape Cod, and that number is growing. And that's just an entryway into the neurological issues that people are facing across the country. So it's an interesting topic, and one that I hope to bring to this audience.
thank you, Jay. And Susan, do you have additional comments? Oh, I think you're muted.
No, I'm not. I'll move in closer. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you, Barbara. Not everyone has a show in their head to produce. Every one of these wonderful shows needs crew people. It's a great fun learning how to operate the cameras and operate the control room. And so if you're like me, one of those kind of people, this could be right up your alley. It's fun, and this is a great community of people to be involved with.
Good. Thank you for that very much. I don't want to put Penny on the spot, but I wondered if you had some additional things to say about your Upper Cape Women's Coalition or about community media in general. And muted.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I think that it's terrifically important that we find a way for FCTV to help everyone's voice be heard. And one of our strongest goals for Upper Cape Women is to help women find their voice. And I was sitting here and I was thinking, wouldn't it be wonderful if there were a way to do matchmaking between groups that really have messages to get out there, and people in the community who may not have a particular issue, but have a skill. And it's almost like a match.com or something, so that we could enable voices to be heard more readily. I think that it certainly is true that every group needs to have a volunteer to work on their programming, but it would seem to me that volunteer doesn't necessarily have to be a part of that group to be helpful. And so it might be a wonderful idea if it were possible to see if there was a pool of people who'd like to learn, just in order to help get some of this information about Parkinson's or about some other diseases, or about Common Start, the new program for childcare across the state, that, maybe there's a way to have a program monthly about issues around childcare for people. So that my mind's percolating while you're talking.
And you're making a lot of sense too. I think Jerry can speak about the volunteers who are not necessarily connected with the particular organization putting the program on, or the person, but it may be that COVID has stalled that a little bit. I would hope that we will see that more volunteers are coming forward, and let's hope that's in the offering. These are excellent ideas. And Kim, Ryan, yes.
I just wanted to take a second to speak to something a little not educational access related, just on the other side of things for Jeff and Eileen and everyone who helps make all of these government meetings possible and available and accessible. I kind of echo Patrick's earlier statement about how school committee, how we made those meetings available and got community input. That was definitely the same case for the government access side. and all of the programming that they did, the hours and hours and hours of that. And I'm not a resident of Falmouth, but obviously I work in Falmouth. Just being able to stay informed and being able to understand what's going on in the town was such an incredible experience, especially with everything the way it's been for the last year and a half. And also too, specifically, Scott McGann, who I hope at some point is the least well-known person in town, but his weekly updates for COVID have been always something that I've watched and trying to stay informed with. So I very much appreciate all of the hard work that it takes to make all of that possible, especially from staff, but also from volunteers as well, because I think people don't realize sometimes when they do perform, when they do a meeting or they do a show in the studio, how widely it's seen sometimes. So being able to share that, yes, people are in fact seeing it, and it is incredibly helpful, I think needs to be stated sometimes more often.
Yes, thank you for that. And I want to be sure that everyone has had a chance for these very nice, very important second thoughts. Kim, any additional comments? Anything that has inspired you to say?
Yes, it's exciting to hear everybody speak about all these conversations that are going on, like the conversation and all the important information, health information, women's issues, what's going on in the community. And part of the grant that we have is how do we create the links to these? So we like to think of the library in new ways in terms of digitization and making connections. So if you looked at all the programmings that FCTV does, it would be great that one day we'd be able to make links to all those resources. So when people come into the library and they say, well, we want to know something more about, race issues in Falmouth, health issues, that we could actually bring the users to these resources that FCTV provides. So those are opportunities in the future that we're really excited about.
Great.
Yes. Well, I want to thank you all. It seems that we have talked about all the good things that the value that FCTV has brought to all your organizations, but we also, thanks to you, have realized that there is still much to do ahead, many interesting opportunities that FCTV can continue to work on and to make possible. Thank you all very much. And we're going to end this program with a video that will feature others from our community who have something to say about the vital importance of community media in Falmouth. Thank you again, all of you, very much for a great conversation.
I really started working with FCTV back in high school, back in the days when I used to attend town meeting to learn about town meeting, and when I couldn't, I could watch it on channel 13, now channel 15. And now as town moderator, I'm honored to have them cover town meeting, gavel to continue that tradition, to bring transparency to government and make sure that members of our community know what's going on.
When you're live on the TV and you're watching the meetings live, you get a whole sense of exactly what's going on. You get a real full understanding of the conversation. If we didn't have FCTV covering our meetings, you'd only get your coverage from the recap in the newspaper, and sometimes they miss things, and they can't write verbatim for the whole meeting. For me, it's also important because I'm the representative to the planning board, liaison to the planning board. I enjoy watching those meetings on the television rather than having to log on the computer with a little small screen. So there's a lot of reasons why it's important, and I really appreciate you guys being there.
The Falmouth Chamber of Commerce is committed to being the community connection. As you know, we work very closely with businesses, nonprofit organizations, government agencies, and the entire community, really, on behalf of the population here of Falmouth. FCTV helps us to amplify the work that we're doing by broadcasting and collaborating with us to get the message out, bringing people together, and making Falmouth a better place for the entire community.
When the pandemic hit in 2020, we all didn't know anything about it, and including myself. And one of the things that FCTV had asked me to do was to do, starting, I think, the first week, right, the week school closed, I think it was probably March 9th, 2020, to start talking about COVID. And I, did the best I could. And we did a little, talk about what COVID is. And it morphed into weekly updates. And one of the big benefits of the weekly update is for you guys to know what's going on. And for us, it did help us with getting less calls about what's going on. And by doing these weekly updates, it really helped the health department sort of minimize, a lot of the, misinformation that goes out. And having FCTV is a great resource because, again, not everybody's web savvy and they get instant information from our website. So thanks to FCTV.
FCTV has been a valuable tool to get information out to the Falmouth citizens in a timely manner. During the pandemic last year, we saw so many changes to election laws and in particular early voting. FCTV was an effective way for me to communicate all the options available to voters. Election night coverage, which is always an exciting time for me, allowed people from the comfort of their home to get real-time election results without having to come to town hall. FCTV has helped me do my job as town clerk and an elected official of the town of Falmouth. Thanks, FCTV.
FCTV has been a phenomenal partner with the Falmouth Police Department as far as getting our message out about the police department. It's a great way for this department to share with the community what's going on.
When you look at local programming, whether it's educational, governmental, whether it's something that supports businesses, FCTV has the 360 creativity of being able to make information available in a way that's interesting, in a way that comes right into your living room, in a way that takes your main street and brings you in. So I'm a long-term supporter of FCTV, and it's going to become more necessary going forward as FCTV and its members and its staff get more and more creative. So
FCTV is really the gold standard for coverage of town of Falmouth governmental events, all the remarkable things that are happening in the Falmouth community that makes us such a special place.
So my hat's off to FCTV for engaging our community, for engaging our volunteers, for making government more open and transparent, and making sure that individuals have the opportunity to tell their stories on community television.